Hi, my name's Brian, and I've been chainsaw milling for over 5 years now. I figured it was about time that I share some of that knowledge because I really liked these sorts of videos when I was starting out. I'm going to share both my budget-friendly setup that I started with and my current, more robust setup, and kind of weigh some of the pros and cons to each of them. Hopefully it'll be something that's useful to anyone looking to start out with this, or anyone who's already doing it. I started out with a Stihl MS-311 and a 36-inch knockoff mill. So it was a mill from Amazon that cost a fraction of the price of the Granberg mill, and I would not recommend that. Just to jump into that first, I broke that mill within the first year. It broke on one of the welds. Bad news. I would not recommend buying a knockoff mill. Granberg is a company that makes great mills. That's the company I can speak for. And then this Stihl MS-311 is a really good saw in my experience. I have beat this thing up. I've never changed the air filter or the fuel filter. This baby just keeps running. I think Stihl makes great saws. For this not being a professional level saw, it really rips. One of the problems I ran into was that with a 20-inch bar, which is the maximum recommended on this, I only got like a 12 to 13-inch cut capacity when it was mounted in the mill, and that was kind of a problem for me. I found that pretty quickly I was maxing it out and going like, well, I have to have more. Hold on. Recommendations, if you have the funds, when you're starting out and you want a smaller setup, I would maybe start with the Stihl MS-362. That's the professional level saw. Again, the 311 has not disappointed me in any way, but I just know those saws are the toughest that they make, and if you're milling, you might want that. One other bonus, I guess, that I would say, if you start with a 60cc like the 311 or the 362, then you have that saw to buck up logs, to fell trees, and it is a great size for those things. It's up to the task if you need to, like if you're milling with a much bigger saw and you need to like cut off an end of a huge log. There are a variety of uses, so this is like my everyday saw now. About the time that I knew I needed to upgrade, I was using the 311 and the smaller mill, and I decided just to go straight to the Granberg mill, but also go much bigger than what I needed at the time. So here's the mill. This is a 56-inch Granberg Alaskan mill. I have a few add-ons to it, and we'll look at those later up close. It slides, so this is the end here, and it slides in and out, and you can run any length, so you can overbuy the mill, which is what I did. And I did upgrade the saw, so I found that the other saw was underpowered. I couldn't run bigger than a 20-inch bar per the manufacturer's specs. I could maybe stretch that a little bit, but not enough. And so I went with this guy, Stihl MS-881. This thing is a beast. It's got this 41-inch bar on it, which I can't barely hold up. Here we go. It's got a 41-inch bar on it. That's what it comes with, one of the options. I actually upgraded, so I'm gonna put this saw down. Upgraded to this 54-inch bar from Granberg, and this thing is more robust. It's thicker, heavier. It feels more appropriate for chainsaw milling, even though that 41-inch bar was pretty good. I actually use both of the bars now, so if I'm milling like a 20-inch wide log, definitely put on the 41-inch bar. But the 54-inch gives me capacity to cut up to about 48 inches wide. That is pretty nice to be able to have, because one of the perks of a chainsaw mill is to be able to go extra wide with your cut. There are bandsaw mills that can do that wide, but I don't know of any in my area. I think if you want to do a big wide log, you're kind of looking at a chainsaw mill around here. And I don't want to go any bigger, honestly. I've cut 48-inch material. I don't really enjoy it, honestly. It takes forever to cut. You just have to remove so much material through the cut, just 8 feet long, and you're running it for like 15 minutes straight for one cut. Of course you get some beautiful big slabs, but that's not my sweet spot. I also have a few add-ons on the mill. One is the quick release clamps. So when you raise the height, which you have to do every time you do a first cut on a log, you have to raise the height of the chainsaw mill, because you're going to have something that you're riding the mill on that's not the log. Those quick release clamps allow you to just pull them back and raise the mill up. Before that, you know, it comes standard with bolts, and you have to hand loosen them And when you do that, it just takes time. Another one that I think is really necessary, unless you have just an incredibly strong back, is the Alaskan winch. So there is a crank attachment on the mill itself, and this is the winch that you attach to the end of the log. So you screw it in on this plate here. I had it backwards, but this ball bumps up against the log, and it allows just some mechanical advantage. So you hook your string to this, and you crank it from the other end, and it just pulls towards this instead of doing one of these and just pulling the saw while you're hunched over all awkward. So the Alaskan winch is a must in my book. It's something that really helps to ease the workload a little bit, because it's still a huge workload. Chainsaw milling is a ton of work. And last, you have to have some kind of auxiliary oiler, I think, if you're chainsaw milling at all. If your chain is buried in a log and just cutting for 10 minutes straight, you have to have some additional oil. You're gonna lose it in that cut, especially if you're going 41-inch bar or 54-inch bar or longer than that. You have to make sure your whole chain is oiled. I did some kind of janky setups with that for a long time, and eventually I came around and bought a knockoff one, and it actually works well, so it's on there right now. Those are my add-ons. Those are the things that I think are essential to add to the mill to kind of enhance it as you go. So to round out talking about this big setup and my current setup, I think it's beneficial to go bigger, because you can also put a shorter bar on the 881, and then you have just endless power. You have as much power as you can have in a saw that's not been modded. If you're thinking about expanding, you go with a bigger saw. Here is my ultimate recommendation when it comes to this. Think about what you plan to do. Think about the logs that you're gonna have access to. Those things matter a lot. So if you think you just wanna try it out, if you think that you're gonna have some smaller logs, maybe some softwood like some pine or some cedar or something like that, try out the 311 or the 362 with a smaller mill setup, or the Granberg small log mill. Those are great setups, and they get you lumber. And those cuts are sometimes really satisfying, because the saw just rips through softwood and it rips through narrower stock, and sometimes it just feels nice to do that. And some people only want to do that. Maybe they want dimensional lumber, or for a cabin, or for the backyard. I mean, that stuff is great. However, if you think that you have a fascination with interesting, large, twisty, weird logs that are gonna have grain going in every direction, that was me. And it would have made sense for me to go with the big saw from the start, because I needed that versatility. But I kind of got my feet wet with the 311, but like I said, quickly. I mean, shorter than a year, I needed to upgrade everything. That's why I say, think about what your setup is gonna be. Think about what you're gonna try and do with it. I think it never hurts to go bigger, unless there's some reason why you know you're gonna cut at a certain point and not go beyond that. So that's the best advice I can give. It would have made more sense for me to start bigger. Like I said, don't cheap out on the mill. Get a name brand. I hope I gave you some things to think about as far as chainsaw milling goes. These were my equipment setups, and there are a ton more saws and a ton more mills, tons of different things to think about, but this is just my small window into it. And I hope you're in this journey with me, or you're considering getting into chainsaw milling. If you are, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out here on this video, or you can reach out on my website, and I always answer everything. I'd be glad to talk chainsaw milling. It's a niche community, and it's cool to be part of. Happy chainsaw milling.